Regal Day. Thank you for joining this recorded session on Module 2, Ethics in Research. My name is Zom Caballero. Module 2, this one is designed to build on the foundation that we established in Module 1, and it will help you gain a stronger understanding of the ethical guidelines for psychological research. So through this session, we will cover the following. Feel free to pause the video, take notes, and revisit any sections as needed. If you have questions, just reach out. So let's get started. Research is a systematic effort to discover or confirm facts, solve new problems, or understand relationships between variables, and all usually through scientific observation and experiments. So, for example, a psychologist might conduct research to understand how stress impacts memory performance by observing the participants under different levels of stress and testing their recall ability. So remember, the main goal of research is to gain generalizable knowledge, something that applies beyond just one person or situation. Now, bakit nga ba natin kailangan ng research sa psychology? Well, because the primary answer is psychology is a science. Kasi kung walang research, puro hula lang yung pag-aaral natin sa behavior and cognition ng mga tao. I have here another example. So, research showed us that CBT or cognitive behavior therapy works well for anxiety. So, the psychologists, they use this evidence to help people get better. Next is ethics. So, ethics are principles about what is right and what is wrong, especially accepted by a group or profession. So in our field, in psychology, this means treating participants fairly and avoiding harm. So try to imagine, there's a study, they intentionally cause participants extreme stress without their consents. So that would be unethical. So ang research ethics, ito naman yung mga values and standards na dapat sundin mula sa umpisa hanggang matapos yung iyong study. So, for instance, yung informed consent, ibig sabihin, you have to explain everything clearly to your participants para makapag-decide sila kung mag-a-agree sila na mag-volunteer, mag-a-agree whether they participate in the study or not. And of course, yung ating confidentiality, it means you keep the information private. Next one, IRB. So to ensure ethical conduct in research, especially involving human participants, institutions have established institutional review boards or IRB. Now, sino ba yung IRB? It is a committee that reviews a research proposal to make sure they are ethically acceptable, and the study should comply with the institution's codes of conduct. So, my example here, before ka magsimula ng study, let's say on depression sa mga adolescents natin, it must be reviewed and approved by the IRB. The IRB, they have to ensure na walang harm na mabibigay sa mga participants. At dahil nga mga adolescents pa sila, kailangan nila ng informed consent. So, at any U.S. institution receiving federal funds for research, an IRB is mandatory. Protecting subjects at risk. So, yung IRB, they consider the safety and welfare or well-being of research participants. Tinawag nila itong subjects at risk if they face potential injury. So, in psychology, pag sinabi natin na injury, it includes physical, psychological, or social. So, halimbawa, there's a study asking participants to recall about a traumatic memories. So, syempre, nagkakaroon tayo ng psychological distress dyan. So, the IRB, they evaluate the paper and kung paano mo masasafeguard or minimize yung harm na mabibigay mo sa mga participants. So, ang solution dyan is bigyan natin ng debriefing after. So, tandaan, yung participants, they should not be exposed to risk. So, that's the main purpose, main function of the IRB. And also, animal rights and welfare, sometimes psychology research involves animals. They emphasize that animals who can feel pain deserve ethical treatment. So, kung magkakaroon tayo ng pag-aaral tungkol sa mga hayop, make sure na hindi sila ganoon masasaktan. So, kadalasan ginagamit yung daga sa mga experimentation. So, ang gagawin doon, kailangan wag pahirapan ng sobra na kahit papano makarin pa rin sila ng magandang buhay. So, research is your tool to discover real facts and understanding in psychology. And then, the ethics guide us how to do it right with fairness, honesty, and respect. The IRB, they protect those involved, making sure no one gets hurt. And whether humans or animals, everyone deserves ethical treatment. So, dito naman tayo sa vulnerable persons. So, sino ba sila? They have certain characteristics or situations that make it hard or impossible for them to decide for themselves whether to join the study or not. So, ito naman yung mga example of vulnerable populations. Number 1, children. So, hindi pa kasi sapat yung kanilang kakayahan na magbigay ng informed consent. Second is the prisoners. Sila yung mga nasa controlled environment na maaring sumunod lang sa research nang walang totoong pagpili. Next is pregnant women kasi meron silang mga special health considerations na kailangang i-protect. Persons with mental health conditions. Pwedeng hindi nila lubos na maintindihan yung research or makapagdesisyon ng malaya. And yung last one is yung mga underprivileged persons. Kasi madali silang ma-exploit dahil sa kanilang kalagayan. So dahil madalas sila yung pinaka-expose sa panganib or hindi makagawa ng informed decision, halimbawa, isang bata na hindi pa nakakaintindi ng buong proseso ng study o isang preso na maring mapilitan dahil nasasakupan sila ng authority. So tandaan, yung mga binigay nating example ay unethical. They might be at higher risk of coercion or misunderstanding or harm. So kaya yung ethics, it requires researchers to be extra careful. Now, when can vulnerable groups be included in research? So this is the main reason. We do not include vulnerable groups in research unless, number 1, the study is necessary to improve the welfare of the population. Number 2, the research cannot be done or non-vulnerable groups. So, halimbawa, kung gusto mong pag-aralin yung epekto ng isang counseling approach para sa mga bata, hindi pwedeng gamitin yung adult participants kasi ibang edad at karanasan na yung pinag-uusapan natin. So, subukan nating isipin yung isang researcher na gusto mag-study tungkol sa depression sa mga taong nakakulong. So, dapat siguraduhin nila na, number 1, walang pressure o walang pilitan sa mga preso na sumali kasi they are vulnerable in deciding. Hindi pwede na gawin sa ibang grupo. Mahalagang malaman kung paano makatulong ang study sa mga preso mismo. So, tandaan natin, we only include them if the study clearly benefits them and cannot be done with others. Respect and extra care are crucial when working with them. Ethics safeguard, participant rights, and welfare. So, bakit nga ba kailangan nating sundin yung mga ethical guidelines? So, first, ethics protect the rights, dignity, and welfare of everyone who participates in research. So this means making sure participants give informed consent, keeping their information private, and minimizing any physical, psychological, or social harm, especially if they belong to vulnerable groups. Halimbawa, kapag may mga study tungkol sa anxiety, kailangan ipaliwanag ng researcher ng klaro sa participants kung ano yung gagawin sa kanila. Hindi pwede na pilitin sila na sumali o itago natin yung mga possibility na sila ay may stress. So, halimbawa ulit, kung may bata naman o may mental health condition yung participants, syempre, kailangan mas bigyan natin ng extra na pag-iingat. Pangalawa, ang ethics ay nagpapatibay ng transparency at katapatan sa lahat ng bahagi ng research, magmula doon sa pag-collect ng data, sa pag-analyze, hanggang sa pagsusulat ng resulta. So this prevents misconduct like fabrication, falsification, or plagiarism. Kapag nag-fake ang researcher ng data para lumabas na successful yung study, hindi lang siya nandadaya sa science. Kasi kaya niya ring labagin yung tiwala ng ibang tao na umaasa sa tunay na information na sana ay mabibigay ng research. And this one is the third. Ethical research builds credibility and reliability. So when you follow ethical standards, your work becomes trustworthy. And of course, the people will have confidence in your findings. Kapag may tiwala yung public sa research, mas malaki yung chance na makatulong ito sa society natin. And isa rin ito sa pagiging socially responsible ng mga academicians or mga professionals. So, isang tama at isang makatarungan na research ay nagiging daan para, of course, ma-develop yung intelligence at knowledge para makatulong sa lahat ng hindi naapi o nasasaktan ng ibang participants. Here, ethics protect researchers and institutions. So, being ethical, meaning you stay accountable and responsible for your work, which protects your reputation. And of course, kung saang institution ka nabebelong. So, isipin mo, ang isang study tungkol sa treatment ng depression, kung hindi gagamitin ng tama yung ethics, pwedeng hindi na-inform ng maayos yung participants o pwede mo ring i-manipulate yung data para mas maging maganda ang resulta ng treatment. Pero kung susunod tayo sa ethics, sinesecure natin na yung consent ng participants ay malinaw. We also look and to make sure yung kanyang privacy. And ang pinakahuli, yung iuulat natin or isi-share natin na result ay hindi kasing ganda ng inaasahan. So next one, the FREB or the Philippine Health Research Ethics Board. Ito ay isang national policy-making body for health research ethics in the Philippines. It was created through the DOST Special Order Number 091, year 2006, to ensure researchers follow universal ethical principles that protects the dignity and rights of health research participants. So why FREB is important? Sa psychology research, madalas nating kinakalap yung sensitibong information mula sa mga tao. Well, sa tulong ng FREB, nasisigurado natin na ang mga participants ay ligtas at iginagalang natin sila sa ating proseso. Tandaan, this is critical because ethical research protects participants from harm and ensures that studies are conducted responsibly. So let us now go to the key functions of the Philippine Health Research Ethics Board. First, ethics review, protection of participants, compliance, risk-benefit analysis, informed consent, privacy, and confidentiality. Sa madaling salita, yung FREB, sila yung gumagabay para sa ethical conduct ng health sa psychology research sa Pilipinas. Sila yung taga-check, taga-protect, at taga-sigurado na ang lahat ng research ay patas, ligtas, at responsable. Ethical guidelines for mental health research. So ngayon naman, pag-usapan natin yung ethical guidelines na mahalaga sa mental health research, lalo na dito sa Pilipinas. Mental health research, it covers many kinds of studies. And ito ay nangangailangan ng maingat na pagtrato sa mga participants at tamang pamamaraan upang maging effective at makatarungan. Research projects in mental health are very diverse in the Philippines. Marami tayong mga national surveys tulad ng National Survey on Mental Health and Wellness na nagtatanong sa kalagayan ng mental health ng mga Pilipino. So, meron ding mga anthropology na pag-aaral na tumitingin sa cultural perspective ng mental illness. Paano ito naiisip at nararanasan ayon sa isang kultura. May mga research din tungkol sa clinical drug trials, evaluating new medications, and genetic studies that explore the cause of mental illness. At dito, isa rin sa mahalagang proyekto ng paggawa ng Filipino Diagnostic Manual para sa mental illness. So, ito yung Filipino version ng DSM-5. So, ba't ito mahalaga? Kasi, yung karamihan na ginagamit na manuals ay gawa sa ibang bansa from the West at hindi palaging tumutugma minsan sa mga karanasan ng mga Pilipino. So by creating a Filipino-specific manual, diagnosis and treatment can be more accurate and of course, magiging culturally sensitive ito. Research also studies psychosocial interventions that help people dealing with drug abuse or mental health challenges resulting from violent experiences like trauma. So lalo na ngayong last time nung meron tayong COVID-19 pandemic, maraming research yung nag-aral kung paano nakaapekto sa mental health ng tao at kung ano mga programa ang nakatulong sa mga frontliners, estudyante at iba pang mga sektor ng lipunan. Kasama rin sa mental health research ang lahat ng age, yung gender, mga bata, kabataan, yung sexual orientation mo. Gamit nito yung iba't ibang paraan ng pag-aaral mula positivistic. So, di ba kapag sinabing positivistic, knowledge is subjective. Gagamit tayo ng mga surveys and measurement hanggang sa phenomenological, yung pag-aaral naman ng karanasan ng mga tao. Nagagamit tayo ng mga interviews naman. So, this multidisciplinary approach involves mental health professionals like psychologists, psychiatrists, sociologists, geneticists, pharmacologists, and more. They work together to understand mental health better. May mga studies rin tayo na it happened in different places, kagaya ng mga sa hospital, sa laboratory, sa clinics, sa school, and even in the communities where mental health services and interventions are delivered. So, halimbawa, pwedeng meron mga field study sa isang barangay kung saan nagbibigay ng counseling at iba pang mga suporta sa mga community members. So kung gagawa kayo ng study tungkol sa effectiveness ng pandemic sa anxiety levels ng mga estudyante, pwede kayong gumamit ng survey para masukat yung anxiety levels. At pwede naman kayong gumamit ng interview para maintindihan mo kung ano talaga yung mga personal na naranasan nila sa buhay. So, importante dito ang pagprotekta sa kanilang privacy, pagkuha ng consent at pagtrato ng may respeto at pag-unawa. So, we will now discuss the methods to finally ensure objectivity in data collection, informed consent, and confidentiality, and special consideration for clinical trials and community-based research. Researchers, they must develop ways beyond simple blinding to ensure objective ang data collection. So one example is assessor blinding. So ibig sabihin, the observer does not know who received the intervention. So isa pang paraan, yung paghihiwalay ng control at experimental group sa magkaibang lugar para hindi maghalo yung data or information from what you observe. So halimbawa, meron kang grupo ng mga pasyente sa isang ospital at yung isa naman ay nasa iba para mapanatili yung integrity ng research. Number 1, all individuals, no matter their mental health status or treatment setting, should be considered as potential participants if they can benefit from the knowledge generated by mental health research. Number 2, excluding individuals from research due to lack of access to information, it creates inequity and selection bias. So even those with poor insight can participate through proxy consent from a legally authorized representative, or the LAR, legally authorized representative. Another, number 3, if the participant is illiterate, the researcher must use alternative methods to explain the clinical trial process clearly. Pwedeng gumamit ng mga videotapes or animated cartoons. Number 4, informed consent is an ongoing process where mental health researchers continuously assess a participant's ability to make decisions using established tools or instrument. Number 5, whenever there's a doubt about participants' capacity to consent, the proxy consent must be obtained from a legally authorized representative, yung LAR, based on the participants' base interests. Number 6, in case where a participant's decisional capacity is temporarily impaired, the researcher should make every effort to obtain informed consent during moments when the participant is lucid and able to understand. 7, in case where a participant's decisional capacity is temporarily impaired, researcher should make effort to obtain informed consent during moments when the participant is lucid and able to understand. So this ensures that the participant's autonomy is respected whenever possible, such as when a participant is fluctuating mental clarity can actively participate in decisions about the study. Number 8, confidentiality is the responsibility of the person who receives the private information from research participants. So from this time, it's the responsibility of the researcher. The researcher should ensure their privacy and respected at all times. But then again, if information arises that indicates a threat to another person's safety, such as planning harm, the researcher may need to breach confidentiality to prevent harm. The researchers must carefully assess the situation to determine if breaking privacy is ethically justified while protecting both participants and others. Number 9, in clinical trials, the participant's identity must be verified using a valid government-issued ID, passport, or birth certificate with a copy of signed informed consent form. So this one is a strict requirement. It protects institutionalized patients and help prevent professional participants from enrolling in multiple trials for financial incentives. So yes, nangyayari talaga ito. So this measure ensure the integrity and safety of the research process. 10, because institutionalized participants belong to a vulnerable population, Lagi-lagi, they must be accompanied by a relative, a guardian during every clinical trial visit. So the person helps confirm any abnormal findings, new physical examination results, or observations. And it ensures that the participant continues to consent to their environment. So dito napapractice natin yung autonomy throughout the study. 11. Investigators conducting clinical drug trials for depression must include suicide risk assessment in training of the research and the patient's care planning. So dapat they carefully decide whether the patients require outpatient or inpatient observation and consider the need for continuous round-the-clock monitoring to ensure the safety of the participants throughout the study. 12. In clinical trials, mental illness where standard care involves psychotherapy. So, ibig sabihin, the psychotherapy regimen must be clearly described and included in the protocol for both control and experimental groups. Now, if psychotherapy is not included, the researcher must provide a valid justification and implement clear clinical measure to monitor early signs of deterioration in participants. So, what else? So, all individuals, regardless of their mental health status or care setting, who might benefit from the knowledge produced by the mental health research should be considered as potential participants. To maintain objectivity, researchers are encouraged to develop alternatives to binding, such as assessor blinding or geographically separating control and experimental groups using reliable and unbiased data collection. 13. At the end of clinical trial, the investigator of the Research Ethics Committee or yung IRB must clearly define the type and extent of care participants will receive. So there will be an arrangement for continuing care, should be fair and equitable, ensuring that participants are supported even after the study concludes. So this commitment reflects the ethical principles of fairness in research. Number 14, pharmacogenetic studies conducted alongside clinical drug trials, it requires a separate informed consent process to ensure clear understanding and voluntary participation. So, a distinct consent from must be signed by the patient or their legally authorized representative. So, these separate procedures respect participants and maintains ethical standards in genetic research. 15. Studies on genetic causes of mental illness must be carefully designed with attention to the limits of genetic data interpretation. And genetic counseling should be provided to help participants understand the implications. So, in addition, all individuals who could benefit from mental health research should be included as participants with research using alternatives to blinding, like assessor blinding or geographical separation to ensure unbiased and reliable data. 16. Community-based research. Ito dapat laging magbigay ng benefits sa buong community. For example, magkakaroon kayo ng community mental health promotion seminar or mga psychoeducation. So, sa gantong paraan, hindi lang nakikinabang yung mga participants, kundi yung buong community na nagbibigay ng awareness and support sa mga mental health. So, this approach, it ensures that the research uplifts and empowers the community as a whole. Number 17. So, community-based research na may kinalaman sa illegal na gawain ay dapat iwasan hanggat maaari. Well, except kung yung layunin ng pag-aaral ay malaki ang matutulong sa paglutas ng problema. Kung sapat naman ang benefits sa lipunan kumpara sa panganib, dapat magkaroon ng maayos na consultation sa mga authorities may mga police tayo, mga local government officers na pwede kayong tulungan bago nyo simulan ang collection ng data para of course maprotektahan natin yung mga researcher at saka yung mga participants. So this careful approach balances societal benefit with safety and legality. 19, dapat pag-usapan ng maigi yung paggamit ng pseudonym o yung pagtanggal ng connections sa pagitan ng pangalan at data para maprotektahan natin yung participants na baka ma-expose sa mga illegal na gawain sa study mo. Well, yung arguments na to kasi, kailangan ng understanding sa mundo, dapat daw nakabatay sa empirical evidence, kung saan ang sense perception ng pundasyon ng kaalaman na nakakamit sa pamamagitan ng sistematikong pangangalap at pag-aayos ng datos tulad ng scientific trials. So this method, both participant protection and the integrity of scientific research. So let's take a 5-minute break now. So pagkatapos nito, pag-uusapan natin yung ethical guidelines for vulnerable groups. So mahalaga to upang matutunan natin kung paano protektahan yung mga karapatan at kapakanan ng mga taong madalas na naapektuhan sa research. So don't forget, ang ating second attendance code ay ethical researcher. Okay, so let's go back. So first, tungkol sa research involving children or minors. So dahil nga yung mga bata ay vulnerable, ang informed consent kailangan nating makuha from their parent or legal guardian. Habang susubukan din nating makuha yung assent o yung pahintulot sa bata mismo. So, halimbawa, sa isang psychological study tungkol sa learning behavior ng batang nasa elementary, importante na ipaliwanag yung proseso sa bata sa simple at malinaw na paraan. Pangalawa, sa research involving older persons, elderly, dapat isaalang-alang natin yung kanilang physical at cognitive na kalagayan. May mga pagkakataon na maring magkaroon sila ng temporary or permanenteng kakulangan sa pagdedesisyon. Kaya nga yung kanina, yung sinabi natin na paggamit ng LAR o yung legally authorized representative ay kinakailangan. So, example here, kung meron kang study tungkol sa memory retention ng mga senior citizen, kailangan maging sensitive tayo or kailangan maging sensitive yung mga researcher sa mga kakayahan nila at yung mga kalagayan nila. So, number 3, para sa research involving people living with HIV. So, dito napakahalaga ng confidentiality at ang pag-iwas sa stigma. Sa ganitong uri ng research, dapat iyakin natin yung mga researcher na ligtas ang information sa mga participants at hindi sila ma-discriminate. So, kailangan wala tayong physical, social, or psychological risk. So, kung mag-aaral ka ng coping mechanism ng PLHIV, dapat protektahan natin yung identity nila para hindi sila ma-isolate din. Pang-apat, research involving people with disabilities. Nangangailangan ng special consideration, katulad ng paggamit ng accessible materials at communication. Kung may participants na may hearing impairment, pwedeng gumamit ng sign language interpreter para masigurado yung tamang pag-intindi ng research process. Isang halimbawa yung pag-aaral ng emotional health ng mga taong may physical disability, kung saan mahalaga yung pag-adapt ng pamamaraan para maging inclusive yung study. Yung panghuli naman natin, research involving indigenous people, mga IPs. So mahalaga yung cultural sensitivity at yung pagkakaroon ng community consent. So hindi lang basta informed consent kasi kailangan maunawaan ng buong community at ng hindi lang isang participants yung layunin ng iyong research. So kung halimbawa, kung naghahanap kayo ng mga psychological resilience sa isang indigenous community, dapat dumaan sa dialogue at pahintulot sa community leaders bago mag-umpisa ng pag-aaral. So sa lahat ng to, yung mga primary principles at sa lahat ng to, ang pangunahing prinsipyo ay respeto at dignidad, karapatan at kapakanan ng mga participants habang sinusunod natin yung ethical guidelines na nilabas ng FREB, yung National Ethical Guidelines for Health Research noong 2022. So sa ganitong paraan, nagpapakita natin yung responsableng pananaliksik na may malasakit sa bawat participants. So now, pag-usapan naman natin yung key ethical principles sa psychological research na binibigyang diin ng American Psychological Association. So these principles guides us to conduct research with respect, responsibility, and care for our participants and the integrity of science. So unang principle, yung beneficence and non-maleficence, na dapat nangangahulugang dapat nating hangarin na makapagbigay ng benefit sa mga participants at iwasan ang anumang harm or pinsala. So kapag gagawa tayo ng research tungkol sa stress, siguraduhin natin na hindi lalala yung stress ng mga participants dahil sa research. Second, the fidelity and responsibility. So it refers to maintaining trust and professionalism. So dapat tayo daw maging responsible tayo hindi lang sa participants kundi pati sa mga colleagues at sa buong society. So transparency and honesty sa pagpapasa ng results ay super importante. And number 3, yung integrity, ito yung tungkol sa pagiging tapat at accurate. Kaya hindi pwedeng manipulahin ang data o i-falsify ang result. So example, kung meron kang data na hindi sumusuporta sa hypothesis mo, hindi mo kailangang ipakita mo na yung totoong naging resulta ng study. So pang-apat, justice, it means fairness at equality. Hindi natin dapat piliin lang yung mga participants na madali o convenient. Kasi lahat ng tao dapat mabigyan ng patas na opportunity to join your research. Yung panghuli natin is respect for people's rights and dignity. Ang ibig sabihin nito, dapat daw respetuhin natin yung privacy, autonomy at dignity ng ating mga participants. So, kasama na dito yung pagkuha ng informed consent bago simulan yung research at protektahan yung kanilang information. To uphold these principles, kailangan nating sundin yung mga practical na guides tulad ng informed consent para maiwasan nila yung harm, confidentiality, anonymity, voluntary participation, at debriefing. So, yung debriefing ginagawa sa pagkatapos ng study. So, in this way, tayo ay nagiging ethical researcher. Nagiging responsible tayo at nagbibigay tayo ng halaga sa kalagayan ng karapatan ng bawat participants. The key ethical standards and practices sa psychological research. Una, the informed consent. Dito, mahalaga na ang participant ay fully informed sa nature ng study, pati na rin sa mga risk at mga benefits. Pangalawa, the voluntary participation and freedom from coercion. So, ibig sabihin, dapat wala daw pressure o force sa participants para sumali or manatili sa study. hindi physical, financial, or academic. Pangatlo, protection from harm. So remember, ang tungkulin kasi ng researcher ay maprotektahan ang mga participants sa any physical or psychological harm. Pang-apat, anonymity and confidentiality. So ito yung dalawang paraan. Well, kapag sinabi natin na anonymity, wala kang kukuning any information. As in, walang information na pwede makapag-connect sa data na meron ka. Kapag naman confidentiality, you will get all the information pero you have the responsibility to keep it and protect it. So, yung panghuli naman, debriefing. So, bale, pagkatapos ng study, kailangan mag-conduct ng debriefing ang researcher sa lahat ng kanyang participants. Kung meron nangyaring deception, kailangan sabihin mo yon sa participants. At kung meron naman nangyari na emotional state, or rather negative emotional state, kailangan mabalik mo siya by, of course, providing them the briefing session. So, sa pagsunod ng mga ethical standards na to, napoprotektahan natin yung mga participants na mapanatili yung integrity sa research. So, bilang psychology students, future psychology researchers, kailangan na ma-apply natin lahat ng ethical guidelines na ito para sa kaligtasan, karapatan at dignidad ng mga participants sa ginagawa nating research. Okay, so this concludes part 1 of our discussion on ethics in research. So please watch the next video, the informed consent form. The third attendance code ay research ethics. So make sure na i-enter sa Google form natin ha.